Okay, my name is John Petrick, and I want to welcome everyone to our February show. As usual, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to the Sacramento Poetry Center for allowing us to, yeah, so let's hear a big cheer for the, woo, yeah, yeah. And we also owe a big debt of gratitude to Andrew, who is our tech guy and has always been the tech guy. And since we started having tech, so that shows how old Andy is. So. Thank you, Andy. Let's give him a trophy. Okay, a lot of us probably were introduced to storytelling through books and libraries and helpful librarians and teachers. So I chose the theme this month of books and National Library Month. So we'll see what people have to do with that theme in a creative way. We have a great lineup of storytellers. We have a number of veterans who will do their usual good job. We have some newcomers that have some really incredible resumes. We have some of the best poets in the entire state of California. So I'm very much looking forward to this show, unless your host and MC screws something up. I'm sure it'll be a really, really good show. So, and last time I was host in December, I did forget one of the tellers. So if I do that again, somebody come and hit me on the head, okay? All right. Our first teller was scheduled to be Sir Lawrence. And Sir Lawrence ended up in the hospital this week with pneumonia. And all week he was promising me he was getting better and he was going to be able to do it, but he called this morning and said he was not going to. So we have Karen Daly, who is going to take his place. And Karen is, I kind of think of her as the mother hen of the Sacramento Storytellers Guild. She keeps everybody in line and runs everything. And she's the president, the treasurer. She's pretty much does it all. So Karen, can you tell us a story? Thank you.
Hello, storytellers. Okay.
Now see your face.
My title is My Love of Books. Now, for most of you, your love of books probably started as a child when your parents read to you. But I don't remember that. I think I remember reading stories to my younger brother, sister, and nephew, but I'm not sure about that either. I fell in love with books a little late, but the one thing I always knew I loved was horses. I loved horses, and I used to dream of myself being a beautiful horse running throughout the valley with my mane and tail just flying in the air. I just felt so free when I thought of myself as a horse. I had no fear of horses. My mother said I would walk up to anybody that had a horse. But we weren't a very rich family. And so when the gentleman came around every year with a horse that we could get up on and have our picture taken for 5 cents, I was so excited. But back then, 5 cents was a loaf of bread. And that was more important for my family than me being able to sit up on top of the horse. But I was out there every time he came by, nuzzling that horse and thinking, one day I'll be able to ride a horse. Little did I know, my mother never talked about her brother Vincent. Found out he was a rodeo cowboy. Oh, how exciting. And he was coming for a visit. He was going to be at the Cow Palace at the big rodeo show, and we lived in Oakland, and he was coming over to say hello. So Mom said I could ask him all about horses. So when Mom yelled, "Karen, Uncle Vincent is here," I ran out the door and I almost fell over. There was a big pickup and a horse trailer. I could hardly contain myself as I ran down and met my Uncle Vincent for the first time that I remembered as a child. And he opened the back and brought out this beautiful pinto, or as the Indians call it, a paint. Now, I'm not sure if he was black with white spotches or white with black spotches, but he was a beautiful quarter horse. And my uncle said those magic words, "Do you want to ride him?" Oh my God, I can ride a horse. Quickly just threw me on his horse's back, bareback, showed me how to hold his mane in case I started slipping, and how to use my knees to hold tight to that horse. And he walked me up and down the block. Oh, I was queen, no, princess of the day. I felt so proud of myself. Well, that started my reading. I read every book about horses there was. There was Frog, there was Gray, there was Wolf, there was Black Stallion, son of Black Stallion, the other was Flicka and Black Beauty. I couldn't read enough horse stories. And then I met boys. And I really liked Tim Considine in the Hardy Boys series. So I started reading the Hardy Boys series. Now there's suspense, there's excitement. Then I found there was a Nancy Drew. Ha, ha, that was even better. And I had the whole collection of Nancy Drew storybooks. And they came with me all the way to my second apartment after we moved, and my husband said, "We're not bringing these box of books anymore." So the library got a good donation. But, I grew older, but I still like suspense. I love suspense. James Patterson is my favorite writer. David Baldacci is second. Maybe Jonathan Killerman might be my third. There are just too many suspense writers out there, and I read them all. And I'm one of these readers that if I pick up the book, I finish the book. I've been known to go to bed 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning because I'm going to finish that book and see who the real person was. I want to encourage all of you to enjoy books. They take you everywhere. They could take you to a foreign country. They can take you to your own little country down the road. They take you wherever you want to go. And you might be that horse with the wind flying in your hair. Well, thank you. All right.
What a great way to open for our theme. Thank you so much, Karen. And I've got two grandsons who are 10 and 12, and the Hardy Boys are still there, man. They still love the Hardy Boys, so that's really cool. So our next teller is Abby Rutstein. And in addition to what you can read about her in the program, which Suzanne puts together a beautiful program every month, I'm not going to repeat what, the stuff in the program about people. But Abby is a really, really lucky person from the standpoint that she can actually has employment in the storytelling industry. And so most of us storytellers would love to do that. And as you can see from the program, she's told stories all over the place. I have not personally heard her speak, so I'm really looking forward to Abby. Abby.
Ooh, thank you for having me today.
Abby, how you being?
When I finished my master's, I asked my parents to help me take all of my stuff from Davis down to Anaheim. I didn't have any furniture, but I had lots and lots of boxes of books and tchotchkes. We had 2 pickup trucks. My dad took the lead, and about 3 hours or so into the ride, I noticed that one of the boxes, one of the flaps of the boxes was opening. And then I kept watching and it was opening more until finally a paperback flew out, up and over the truck that I was driving. So I called up my dad and I said, "Hey, a book just flew out." And he said, "Which one?" So it was always an adventure with him, always an adventure. And this move that I was doing, this was nothing new to me. We moved a lot. This was probably my 30th move in my whole life. And I know what you're thinking. Were you an army brat? No. Or better yet, were you wealthy jet setters? Not even the Kmart Kardashians, just not even. No. My mom used to say, "Your father is an alchemist. He turns money into shit."
Yeah.
So, with a part-time bill payer, you move a lot. I would go to a different school every year from the first grade to the ninth grade. And I used to be really ashamed of this, of all the chaos and having to make new friends and learn new things, learn new neighborhoods. One time we moved to this suburban everywhere in the desert of Arizona. And one of the neighbor kids came and she brought us a pie that her mother had baked to welcome us to the neighborhood. Who does that? And the child's name was Barbie. My family was so far from the Barbie dream house that I just wanted to disappear generally. But also in this suburban everywhere was the first time that my parents started taking us to the library, my sister and I. It was 3rd grade, and I, as you can see, am short. I was way smaller then, and the library looked huge because everything looks huge when you're a child. And I remember it was probably three stories or so, and I remember looking down and seeing all these books and being amazed. And we would take a ton of them home. And I was able to, for the first time, I wrote a short story in 3rd grade. And then in the 5th grade, different school, different city, they let us write short stories as part of the curriculum, which I thought, you're letting me do this and get a grade? So they did. And I read all kinds of things like anything with a fantastical element, like James and the Giant Peach. Like, there's a giant peach. Are you kidding me? So I think I did this because I wanted to kind of escape the chaos and kind of live in my imagination. But it wasn't always just, chaos and confusion. We did have kind of a good time. My sense of adventure was kind of sparked by all the moves. Um, One time when I had a room of my own, I wallpapered all of the walls with posters of hair bands that I got out of Metal Edge magazine. There's photographic evidence of this, but I did not bring it. And if you need an interior designer, don't ask me. Another time, my sister and I, we never fought about a room when we were able to get a room of our own and not share it. We never fought about which was the better one or which was the worse, because we just take turns. Surely we'd move again. So there was one, we did on one move, my mom drove a fish from Phoenix to LA, and the fish survived. But when it got to our new place in LA, it liked to jump out of the tank. And I think it was just sick of the chaos. But while the fish was tired of all of the differences, we still always came together as a family and we made it our home. And anywhere we were together was our home. And one of my favorite parts of all the moves was when we'd come in, we'd be exhausted after ordering pizza. We were just too tired. We wouldn't unpack anything, and we wouldn't put any furniture together. We would just drop our mattresses down and pass out for the night. And as a kid, I would lie on the mattress and I'd stare up at the ceiling and imagine all kinds of new things. And as I was sleeping, I'd think, this is a new beginning. This is a new beginning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abby. I hope we can have you as a teller again. That was a great story. And did you ever figure out what the book was that you lost? Okay. Our next teller is Sean O'Brien. And Sean is a first-time teller here, although he's, as you can see from his resume in the program, he's a long-time experienced artist in many forms. And I figured a guy like Sean, with all the programs he's done and stuff, would have his own website, but I looked it up, so I looked for him, and all I found was that he was president of the International Teamsters, but apparently that's a different Sean O'Brien. But Sean is actually appearing here again tonight at a show next door, and I'll let him tell you about that. So Sean, you want to?
Called George. My story is called George. Mr. Schultz stuck his big white jowly face through the serving window of our canteen and asked us to repeat our orders. He had what seemed to be no tooth in his, or only one tooth in his mouth. So when he spoke, he only spoke using his tongue, his hard palate, and the flapping of the large pouches of skin that hung about his face. As you would expect, his speech was rather broad and indistinct. But since he only had to say the few words from his very brief menu of hot dogs, hamburgers, and I may say the most delicious and buttery lobster rolls in New England, no one had any difficult time discerning the difference between his hamburgers or his lobster rolls. Mr. Schultz's window looked out on the big beach at Pinewood Lake. And at high summer, you could see the heat wafting up from the soft, very hot black asphalt strip that separated the canteen from the beach. And you could smell the commingling of frying hamburgers and bazooka bubblegum and the hot summer air. Inside the canteen, there was a small, a relatively cool retreat where no one went unless they needed smokes, which could be had for 25 cents by pulling the clear plastic knob on the front of the mechanical cigarette machine. Next to it was a jukebox, which could hold 30 songs, 30 records, but in fact only held one. So all summer long, we were reminded over and over again that Mick Jagger just could not get any satisfaction. And we thought that strange because we were very, very well satisfied. After all, it was the year 1965. I was 13. Rock and roll was still young. And I had my own lake across the street to swim in and sail on, and during the winter to skate and play hockey. And behind my house, endless tracts of Connecticut wilderness to play around in. It was a very, very nice place to grow up. And then I got older and bored and started getting into trouble. That summer, I ran away from home for a couple days. My punishment was that I had to clean up the cellar. That was okay because my father's playboys were down there. Tommy Sullivan dared me to steal a pack of cigarettes from the local food market. Of course, I got busted. Picking me up from the police office in the basement of the town hall and walking with me out of the town hall down the steps, my father, usually a very peaceable man, could not resist the urge to kick me down the stairs. It was only 3 stairs, but I got the message, and my mother never forgave my father for kicking her favorite son down the stairs. Mark, my best friend, and I, we got drunk on apple cider and applejack that we had made ourselves with apples from a local tree and some Yankee ingenuity. My parents took me out of public school and put me into Catholic school. I got in as much trouble in Catholic school, or maybe even worse. But the difference was that my parents did not generally strike us if we misbehaved. The nuns did. The thing is, I found out later in life, of course, I was a terrible student. I was constantly staring out the window, trying to find ways not to have to do homework. That was my function in life, pretty much. And then later on in life, I found out I have this thing called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. My biggest problem is impulsivity. There's a lack of, because of a lack of neurotransmitters in my cerebral cortex to govern my thoughts. My mind just jumps to the next most exciting thing, finding difficulty focusing on any particular thing. So I needed constant distraction. My family was very nice, but they were very conventional. And I needed unconventional. I needed excitement and I needed drama. Enter drama. The first time I ever saw George Goodrich was when I was through my parents' picture window in the living room, and he was crossing the divide between his property and my property, and trudging through 6 inches of snow with Scottish kilts. I found out that he wasn't particularly Scottish, did not wear kilts on a regular basis, formal or casual, but he was in fact a bit of a clown. Not a real clown, just somebody who does unexpected, exciting things, which drew me to him. And he was just that kind of a person. He was born in New York City, raised there, and then finally migrated into the suburbs of Connecticut, where he complained the rest of his life that he was a prisoner of middle-class morality. He even wrote a book about it called I Should Have Stayed with Hot Pastrami, which is basically just a rundown of all his sexual experience throughout his life, just claiming that he was now a prisoner of the bourgeoisie. George never reacted to anyone. Everyone reacted to George. When he would meet women that he knew or even young women, ladies that he knew on the street, he would just stop, take a position, throw his arms out and sing, "Have you ever seen a dream walking? Well, I have." Encountering children, he would drop down into a palsied hunch with one withered arm hanging down and his leg dragging behind him like he was supposed to have a hump and a club foot. Whether he was supposed to be Igor or Quasimodo or Richard III, we had really no idea, but he threw his whole body into the play of it. Kids loved it. His wife Joan. His wife Joan was the exact opposite of George. She was tall, quiet, and statuesque. She was probably the most regal person I ever met in my life. And she was, in fact, regal because her father was no other than the great silent film actor, wait for it, the Austrian Baron Gustav von Seifertitz. Now, a lot of silent movie buffs will know about von Seifertitz because he was a very large, dramatic man, and he starred opposite the great Greta Garbo in silent movies and other stars too, and only to be forgotten when they came up with talkies and his very thick Austrian accent betrayed him, and he had to quit movies. Joan was about as big as her celebrity father had been. She had a very, very large face, a strong jaw, and a long, large, imperious nose. She was the image of someone from central casting, needed to play an empress or a queen. George and Joan loved the theater, and I had just started acting in theatrical plays in my neighborhood. I was only 16. When I was 17, they started renting out their house every single summer to actors from the Stratford Shakespeare Festival in Stratford, Connecticut, just one town over from where I grew up. That summer, I had Macbeth living next door in the person of Canadian actor John Colicos. Some people might know about Colicos. If you're a Trekkie, he played Klingon Commander Kor in a number of episodes on Star Trek. He was living next door. The next summer, we were graced with the presence of actress Kate Reed, who was playing Juliet's nurse at the time in R&J. And later she became, she was cast as Dr. Levitt in Michael Crichton's The Andromeda Strain. I was very, very much impressed with these people next door. I love the theater. They love the theater. They encourage my love of the theater, and they encourage me to greater self-expression. Because my family had been very, very nice, but very, very conventional. And because of the ADHD, I was always looking for something exciting. I was drawn to George like a moth to a flame. What I have left of George is his black beaver skin top hat. It is mine. It is old. It is mine, but it is not mine. It's not the tall top hats that the Victorians wore, but it's a little bit shorter, and its quality is reflected in a midpoint taper that curves fashionably up from the brim to the crown, giving it a very certain flair. This hat, it represents, for me, drama and excitement. Whoever wore this hat was risked things regularly. They associated with risky men and women, and they gambled in so many different ways. In one word, someone very unconventional, not like me at all. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. Tell them about your show tonight.
Okay, I'm reprising the role of the two Dukes in As You Like It. I did it at Big Idea Theater Company 12 years ago. So As You Like It opens tonight at the Cal stage right here, California stage. And we have a very, very good cast, and we run for the next 4 or 5 weeks. So I'd love to see you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sean. It was always my perspective that the Catholic kids were the wildest. because they all had these huge families, 6, 8 kids, and they were just free range because parents didn't have time to take care of them. So I was a Catholic, by the way. So um, our first poet today is M. Love. Where is she? Oh, there she is. And you can see what a great resume she has in the program. And she also has a website that I went to look at, which could use a little updating perhaps. But I just wanted to quote one of the people that reviewed M. Love's one of her poetry books. Your poem made me long for a love I've never known, but I feel is still on the way. If you listen, this will make you get in touch with yourself in a way you might not have in a long time. I can't say enough about the salve these poems put on my soul. So, M. Love, please salve our souls.
Okay. So if it didn't say it in my little bio there, I'm country. So just want to get that out of the way because people get. I did not know what to expect, but so far I feel so at home, right there with the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, all that. Right there with all of that. That's my jam. And those are my people. Did not I just wanted to share some poetry. I was a library rat. The library was the thing you could do. Growing up in the country, there was not much there, but you could walk to the library, and I did. And so I love books. And this poetry thing started because I read Maya Angelou in the 6th grade, and it blew my mind. Blew my mind. I read everything, and I had never read anything by a Black person before. And so when my teacher introduced it to us, we had Black History Week. I was hooked. Yeah. I was hooked. And so I started to believe in the voice that talked to me and write down what it said because of her. So if you are a person who does that, I don't feel so alone anymore. So I'd like to just share, because I think my poetry speaks better than I do. So this one was a prompt that I created, and I'd like to share it with you. It's when my soul feels at home. Well, when my soul feels at home. When my soul feels at home, I feel like taking my shoes off, curling my feet under me and staying a while. When I feel at home, I can breathe. It feels like my lungs are double sized. I smile and show off all of my teeth, even the ones that's not even there anymore. And I don't even hide it. Why should I? I'm at home. When my soul feels at home, I feel like I'm back in mama's kitchen. It's my birthday. She's making a cake, and I get to lick the spoon. Home. My 3rd grade picture is on the wall. The one with the lopsided ponytail, the chipped tooth, and pink eye. Big old smile. I used to be ashamed of that picture, but now it's all good inside. So whoever I am and wherever I am, I'm okay when my soul feels at home. I sleep better. It's just like old times. My old room, I'm holding my pillow close, the one I had until I left home, with 1,000 spit marks on it that are mine, all mine. So I don't mind. I feel like I'm back at grandma's house. It's gone on late and we spent the night. Mama gets up in the wee hours, puts another quilt on to keep the night chill off her babies. And with one arm, she lays a protective hug around all 3 of us at the same time and hugs us tight. We don't squirm and complain much. Even now, my sleep is sweeter when I remember those times when my soul feels at home. That's that piece. Thank you. In the same vein, here's a prompt around what hope feels like. Hope feels like grandma's biscuits in my belly. Warm, crispy on the tops and bottoms, but fluffy in the middle. Slathered with butter and pear preserves. We picked, mom baked, and we ate. That's just the way it went. Hope feels like the best summer day, like that time when there was somebody new in the neighborhood for the summer. Exciting. They were my age, someone from somewhere else, and they could play basketball. Man, guaranteed to make our street the place to play this summer. Hope feels like taking a good book slow, savoring the juicy bits, stopping on purpose to walk to the store for orange soda and vinegar and salt and potato chips, finding the right spot in the sun, and then, and only then, finish the book. Hope feels like the when creativity sends the perfect line, choosing me to immortalize the thought. The only poet still up. The delicious tingles in my arms and wrists is a signal to buckle up for the ride. Hope is the cool breeze across my skin, right before the words pour onto my pad. That's that piece. I write because I have to. I write because it's the only thing that's guaranteed to receive me when I pour out that is hurting me. Gripping the solid lead, I press a nub of a number 2 until I make my point. Until the imprint dent matches the depths I've fallen into. I want to let go. Like storm winds held back, like clouds rolling in, I've been holding it too long. The unsung, the unborn, the unhealed has a name, and it's screaming it. Free me. That's that piece.
Yeah.
Dare to love an artist's soul. Dare to let them dream. Unfettered and untamed. Souls roaming free like old spirits in moss-covered forests. It's the feverish burn. Crimson eyes, straining, staring at nothing. Sightless, seeing only stories. Entranced, waiting for inspiration to strike. It's ethereal. It's unreal. No voice, just frequency. Frequently, they disconnect so they can't exist. Fight to let them be radical. A dreamer wide awake, stumbling through the tedium, a rat's nest of everyday yearning for a chance to steal away right in front of your eyes. Hypnotized by mind spell, crafting and weaving word webs, a writer's way to crouch close to the entrance of soul. That's that piece.
Yeah.
Light, airy, no worry, no hurry, like the dandelion spores we set free. I remember some of the rules to the games we played. Get to base first, you win. Tag, you're it. So simple. Where did it all go? The endless summers, marathon play dates, ingenious ideas that almost got us killed, let Mama tell it. But did I leave home too soon? Did I grow too fast? Did I go too fast? Did I forget the simplicity of how to play red light, green light, 1, 2, 3? The fun of nothing to kick but a can or rocks. So we kicked both all summer. Innocence didn't stay long. And in its wake, memories overtake. Things I won't soon forget that are still there. They're tattooed in my tissues. I'm forever changed. Youth, gone like the wind. Pieces and fragments remain. They live in my brain. Scattered, left unwanted like mismatched socks from life's laundry. Unlatched and flapping free like broken screen doors or street trash during the wind dance before it gets tangled with grass, bramble, and briars beside the roadside. If I squint, I can see the pressed grass, the path to the playground, the race to be first on the merry-go-round and the monkey bars. Free space. Where did it all go? If I strain, the screams and shrieks from the winning team reach me. Snatches of the past hangs out sometimes with me, faint like late night radio stations, not enough for a full night dream, sufficient for daytime only. My body kept a record. I feel the shadows of it. Every now and again, it returns. Light, airy, no hurry, no worry, like the dandelion spores we set free.
Oh, yeah.
Do I have time for 2 more or 1?
No,
No more time?
I haven't been time.
10 minutes.
Okay.
What? No, I guess not. Your contact?
Cool.
Karen tells me.
Thank
you're
you.
not-
Thank you, Karen. I'll see you in the back. I have a gift for you if you'd like it. And I did have a few things to give away that I'm published in. So see me in the back. Peace.
Thank you. Well done.
So you listed all your talents in your resume, but you didn't say performer. And you bring those poems out like not very many other poets do. Is it time for intermission now?
Yep.
Okay, well, before we have intermission, that Vicky always does such a wonderful job of preparing the food. And she's the person I forgot last time, so I owe her big time, so I wanted to introduce her twice this time. But before we have intermission, Ed, do you want to talk about the Storytelling Festival that's coming up next month?
Sure, I can just do it. Want me to come up there?
Yeah,
No,
sure.
because you have to be up there for the, you see, there's people online, they need to hear it.
On March 15th, next month at the West Sacramento Community Center, we will be having our third storytelling festival. And there's a flyer over there. You all should get it that Suzanne produced. It's a great flyer. It's $25 from 1 to 4 on that Saturday. And there are 2 international storytellers that are unbelievable. There's Willie Claflin, who is known kind of as the Robin Williams of storytelling. And then there's Ethnotech, and they're a married couple. They do Asian folk tales. They dress up in costume often. They produce lots of events. They're from San Francisco. They take tours of storytellers over to China and the Philippines. The woman is Chinese American and the man is Filipino American, and they put together these amazing historical pieces, costumes, drums, flutes, movement. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And then we have 6 other well-known storytellers that are doing stories on the themes of folktales. And we have a short presentation about folktales before that begins. Actually, the president of the Storytelling Association of California will be leading that. We have personal stories, and the leader for that is Dave Tarvin, who you'll hear later today. And then we have cultural diversity with Ben Tucker, who's a famous storyteller in the Bay Area, and he is also on the board of the Storytelling Association of California. And we'll have Walter will be doing a nice little presentation of cookies and water and things. We have donations, and all of you can do that also, that you can do a raffle for.
Drawing, not a raffle.
A drawing, not a raffle. So it's a fantastic event. You can come at 12:30. You can get tickets here now. You can get tickets online. You can go to our website, and everything on the flyer will tell you how to do that. So it's a great event, and we hope you come. Again, March 15th, third Saturday, West Sacramento Community Center.
Vendor tables.
What's that?
Vendor.
Oh, we have a vendor table also. If any of you have things you want to sell, you can do that. John Aubert and his group from Capital Storytelling will have a table advertising all their information, and a new group called In a Nutshell that you should definitely find out about. They are producing events at the B Street Theater, the Sophia. They started their first one. I've got a couple of little flyers if you want to find out about it. They'll have a table there also. And
Is the storytelling group going to be there? The husband and wife that have all the books? Are they going to still be there?
not sure, but we have other vendors that will be there. So, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And we have these posters in the front and the back for the storytelling that Suzanne put together. They're beautiful. Joyce has a little announcement as well, and then we'll get some something to drink and eat.
Here are the flyers. All kinds of info.
What are you doing next Saturday? If you're not busy, come right here from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., light lunch included. We're going to do a workshop, and it's going to be busy. It's going to be active, wear comfortable clothes, and it's right for everyone. It's called Enhance Your Storytelling with Movement, and we're going to do a lot of moving and shaking and drinking and laughing. So please sign up if you want to come. What? Oh, I'm sorry, $20. Pay when you come. But please sign up over there so we have enough food to feed you. There is a sign up workshop. We have some registrations already. You can also register on my email.
And it's Joyce and I.
Thank you, Joyce. And that, yeah, more information on that is on our Sacramento Storytellers website. And then I'll put that on the front page tomorrow, since that'll be the next event. Yeah, let's have something to eat and drink and mingle a little bit, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, thank you very much, Vicki, for all the wonderful food and drink. And we're back at it. Our next teller is Dave Tarvin. And in addition to all the wonderful things that are in the program, Dave is, I've learned many things about Dave over the years because I've heard him tell stories a lot of different times. And Dave has been a painter. He's been a counselor for troubled youth, which has to be a very, very hard job. He's worked at the Railroad Museum.
Yep.
And anyway, just kind of a cool, well-rounded life for Dave. And he's also a great storyteller and a great story writer. So here we are, Dave Tarvin.
All right, can everybody hear me? Is that loud, Ed? No, it's good, good. Well, my name is Probably should have drank that water before I started. My name is Dave. I do know my own name. But actually, I go by the one, the only, the original Coffee Bar Cowboy. That's how people know me. That's my nickname, my stuff. Anyways, but not in the libraries. In libraries from the San Joaquin Valley all the way to the Tahoe Basin, I am known as the why guy. Why? Because I gotta know. And I need to know about people. I am mystified by other people. Why do they do what they do? What the heck are they thinking? What motivates them? How do they express that? How does that manifest? And all of that started when I was 13. My family moved from the big city to a teeny tiny little town with nothing in it. We didn't even have sidewalks to ride my skateboard on. The only thing that was in town was a library. And so I went every day and I read books, and I found I liked to read. I read the Hardy Boys, like people had mentioned. My favorite book was Two Wheel Thunder, all about motorcycles. That's where I got my love of riding the Iron Horse. And I read every book in that little library. And pretty soon I started going to other libraries, but I went all the time. And as I graduated high school and went to college, I became more focused on people and history and the why. And so I read all these books about religion, philosophy, psychology. I actually have a degree in psychology. I read a lot of those books. And so as I got older, by the time I hit 30, I kind of slowed down in going to the library all the time. And I started going just once a week, Thursdays. And that was when I met this very wonderful man. His name was Will, 94 years young. A retired psychologist who volunteered at the library with his wife. His wife was a retired teacher. They had been married for 70 some plus years. And he was a fascinating man. We had great discussions about the things that I was interested in, philosophy and psychology and the whys, whys. And so he told me a lot of his stories, and he really was fascinating. During World War II, his troop was the first boots on the ground in Japan. His troop cleared the path for all those generals that signed the peace treaties and stuff from the docks in Tokyo Harbor all the way to downtown Tokyo. After the war, he came back and he went to work part-time in a mill. He went to school. His wife went to school. They had children, including a special needs daughter that they took care of. He graduated college. He became a college professor, and their life went on, and they built a great life. They were, for lack of a better word or phrase, a power couple. Which brings me to some of the things that he and I would always discuss, because one of the things we talked about were myths, because they are a manifestation of what people think. Their psychology, our psychology that reaches back through time, thousands of years. And I always had this one myth that I never quite kind of understood, and it goes like this. So the myth is about how human beings were formed. Originally, we didn't have these kinds of bodies. We were round and thick, like a big old hockey puck. And we had 4 arms, 4 legs, 2 heads, 2 sets of genitalia. And we were becoming the most powerful creatures on the earth because we could move really quickly, and we had 2 brains, and we could figure stuff out, and we could do things, we could build things, and we could catch things. And we became so powerful that the gods up on Mount Olympus, God, I should have had that water, became threatened. And so they went and they complained to Zeus, because they were afraid that human beings would become so strong that there would be another war like the ones with the Titans. And so Zeus started to pay attention, and he was watching, human beings, and he thought they are becoming too powerful. And so, we got water. How accommodating. Boy. Thank you. So back to the story, to the myth. This is an old, seldom told myth. So all these gods complained to Zeus, and he saw that human beings were indeed a threat. And so he gathered up all of his energy, all of the thunder, all of the lightning, and he gathered that up. And he made his lightning bolts, and he threw them down into the earth and struck human being after human being and split them in half. And human beings began to wander, looking for their other half, looking for their soulmate, the other half, the better half. And today, people still do that. I know as a human being, I have done that, always looking for the other half. And how does that happen? A mystery. So that was one of the things that Will and I would discuss all the time, off and on, just among other things. And then one day, this curious thing happened. Will and I were standing in the middle of the library, and we were talking, and we were discussing some, psychological thing, Adler or Jung, probably Jung, something. And all of a sudden, he was talking. And so when people are talking to me, and I think I kind of look up like this, I look off to the side. And I was doing that, and all of a sudden I noticed his wife coming across the library, and she was coming towards him, but she saw that he was deep in thought and conversation. So she just turned and she walked towards the front door. She got to that door and she opened it. And it was an old fashioned kind of, commercial doors, those double glass doors. And she opened the door, she walked through it, and she was a polite old lady. She turned around and she was just going to release it. I would have just slammed it, but she was going to just gently put it back, right? And she had a hold of that door and she stopped and she just looked straight at Will. And she just stood there. 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, just staring at him. And I thought, what is that? And then all of a sudden, Will is talking to me and he stops. And he turns and he looks up and he makes eye contact with her. And he looks straight at her. 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. I don't know exactly what was happening, but there was definitely some huge mysterious connection, something I didn't understand, but I could sure sense and feel that energy between the two, that they were combined, that they were one. They were two halves of one whole. And I realized that's why they were the power couple. They were so powerful. Well, I just stood there kind of pondering that. Closed. She gave Will this smile and she just kind of waved like that. And she turned around and walked off. Will watched her as she walked out towards the parking lot. And then all of a sudden he kind of snapped back and he looked at me and he knew that I was watching this whole exchange. He got this little quirky smile on his face, a little glint in his eye. He just said, man, I got lucky there.
Thank you so much, Dave. That was really a great story. It really was. That was one of the best I've ever heard you tell, I think. And yeah. So our next speaker, I got so absorbed in Dave's story, I forgot to see who the next speaker is. Okay, it is Dave Bowles, and as you can see from the program, Dave has got quite a career as every phase of writing and publishing. He talks about himself as an itinerant artist. So I had to look that up to make sure I knew what itinerant meant. But it means he's a pilgrim. He wanders from place to place, presumably seeking truth. So Dave also added in, I'm not sure if this part of his bio made the program. He lives in Northern California at his beloved lake house with his wife, Mrs. America, and numerous animals. Dave Bowles.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm actually primarily here to push my anthology, Voices. I come out every year. This is our 14th year. Andy's been in it. Vicky has been in it. This thing goes all over the world. It's collected by several different institutions. And I am constantly pushing that all storytellers, writers, flash writers submit to it. For some godforsaken reason, I got tagged with a poetry publisher. And it's so much more than that. So I encourage everyone to put all this stuff down in words on the page and then send them off to where they're kept. I mean, they're collected. And the reason I say that is I first published when I was 14, 52 years ago, Quick math, that's 66. And I was hooked ever since. And my first published piece was a short story, actually. And I've been doing publishing and writing ever since. Most of my poetry is story form, like the previous Dave. I have degrees in psychology, philosophy, and I have a doctorate in theology. I study ancient religions, ancient myths, and I incorporate that because all of us here have grown up with the past. Everything that we're doing and writing took place centuries ago, millennia ago, and it's filtered through culturally, and it affects us. So that's my pitch for voices. You can find me online, coldriverpress.com. It's fairly substantial. You know, I try to get a lot of people in there. I was recently asked by an institution, how many poets have I published? I counted over 350. So, and a lot of these are unknown that wound up becoming very well known. You know, so y'all, I mean, I was a struggling writer, you know, I still am. It's you know, it's hard to get recognition. So that's my pitch for voices. We're going to leave it at that. I applaud storytellers because you can come up here and don't have to read. I took great pride in my younger days. I could do the same thing. I had a stroke 11 years ago. I cannot remember shit. I can tell you a poem I wrote when I was 21. I couldn't tell you what damn one. So with that, I'm going to have to, if you'll allow me, I'm going to read some new stuff, and then I'm going to read a continuation of a long poem, many books, Coyote Magic, and yeah, last time I was here, I brought these, and Coyote Vision. I'm currently working on the third installment. I'm nearly complete with it. That hopefully will be out this year. I keep thinking, but I keep changing it. And what it has evolved around is a lot of mysticism, a lot of spiritualism, and we're talking about, in this particular book, panspermia. Anybody here know what panspermia is? Okay, I'm not going to tell you. You have to read the book. Panspermia is the notion, it's not even a notion, it's a science, that the Earth is seeded, as are all planets, by cosmic DNA. And there is so much scientific proof for this. I've been following this all my life. This is all my life. And it just, you know, it makes a lot of sense. So my hero in the book series is Coyote, and he takes me on these hallucinogenic, magical journeys. And I discuss, I'm a proponent of hallucinogens. And through my Church of the Illuminated Monkey that you see here, and it's not to go out there and get crazy, it's to unlock your mind a little bit. Because hallucinogens have been used in society for as long as we've had societies. And all of this that we see here, it's all man-made, fabricated. It's all illusion. It's all Maya. There's so much more than this. So with that said, these are some new pieces. I do a lot of surreal writing. I love surreal writing. Fried rice on Tuesday. Remove the curtains, straighten the doors, buy the dog a new chauffeur's hat, turn the TV into an aquarium, go shopping for flat fish. Leave a condom on the floor of your church, watch to see if it bursts into flames. Run naked through town, live for the moment. Tomorrow is just a dream. So I searched far and wide for this poem. I wrote this many, many years ago, and I couldn't find the damn thing. This was 5 hard drives buried in my collection. And this is about publishing. Publishing along with your theme here. By the way, the next theme, I love themes with books, for voices is mysticism, prophecies, and marigolds. Check out what marigolds are in culture. It'll blow you away. You'll spend the rest of the weekend looking at marigolds. Publishing. These words, images, some large, some small, some simple, some complicated, but all of them riding through time in books, journals, rocks, cave walls, even more passed down in stories, songs, dance, preserving the history of cultures for millennia. A well-formed word, a well-placed image has given strength to countless dreamers, artists of consciousness, aware of a story's ability to transcend the arc of life, its message remaining pure, intact through all of time. That's publishing. You get a real sense of publishing if you've had like what I had, and you have a hard time remembering stuff. But you know what happens with books? You don't have to remember it because it's right there on the damn page. And there it is. This is called requisite adoration. There is no mystery. We have all been deceived, programmed from an early age, when to work, when to rest, which deity to follow, which faith to believe, as if there is only one. We can plainly see the sun rising in the east. Do we follow it all day, embracing its journey as our own? Songs of love, Yahweh's gift to us, spoken in birdsong, fill the air. Listen closely. You will hear the universe unfolding, giving us direction, a destination to begin our journey. No mysteries, nothing in the shadows. It is all here now, in the light. Remove the call of ignorance and allow magic to breathe. Be deceived no longer. Rejoice as the land calls to us, returning once more to a devotion of the sun, a wonderment of the stars and the moon. We can escape the programming of lesser men masquerading as gods. Follow the sun, bathe in its purity, cut free the bonds you believe that bind you. It is all Maya. It is all an illusion. There is the journey before us, nothing else. The path is lit by the sun. The journey is wondrous. Birdsong leads the way. Cast free the chains forged of forced devotion and allow yourself to be free. Oh, thank you. That's the first time I've ever read that. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I'd be burned at the stake for that crap. Okay, this is the continuation of Coyote. This is the start of Coyote 3. And so if you read it, it's a continuing journey. It had been a long while since Coyote left me sitting on my dock, pondering all that he had showed me. The mermaids still appeared now and then. I mean, we got mermaids. Moving through walls, windows, the ceiling and floors of my home, playfully living life with the abandon that these magical beings are known for. Occasionally, they would tell me Coyote wished me well, or he had recently inquired about me. Other than that, there was no notice at all. Until one day, after several seasons had passed by, I heard a familiar voice call out to me as I was tending to my woodpile. Hello there, the familiar voice called out. Your woodpile has grown favorably. There was no doubt at all as to whom the voice belonged to. It was the trickster, bushy tail and all. You were gone for such a long while, I called out. I thought you might never return. Is that so? He answered in his typical fashion. I hadn't really noticed. Might I trouble you for a cup of that fabulous tea you brew? Coyote headed towards my house with a somewhat slower pace than I recalled. Tell me, he gleefully inquired, have the mermaids kept you informed during my absence? They did look in on you, didn't they? I assured him they had done exactly that. In fact, they were due for an appearance any time. They will be away for a while, he offered without explanation. Other than that, they would return again before he left. Some sort of secret mission, I asked. Something like that, he replied, his bushy tail twitching in agitation. I set my teapot on the wood stove and set about preparing the tea. I recently harvested these mushrooms, I called out. They are of an excellent variety that I have been developing since you left. Coyote had settled in next to the fire, warming himself. I brought in 2 steaming cups of mushroom tea on an ornate silver tray with 2 pieces of lemon rind and a small jar of honey for taste. Coyote looked peacefully at the fire. The night had a chill and a dampness to it that spoke of colder times to come. The fire, peacefully burning in my old stove, brought a welcome warmth to its hearth. Is that it for me? Oh. In the beginning, Coyote suddenly announced, there was only space, nothingness and emptiness without form, without direction. His abrupt statement caught me unawares as I sat gazing into the hypnotic dance of the fire. This was the realm from which the creator began forming magic, life, if you will, if that makes it easier for you to grasp, but magic nonetheless. He motioned me to stir the fire, sending a torrent of sparks and flame upwards through the chimney. In much the same way this fire spread life upon being stirred, so too did the Creator bring life out of the darkness, the emptiness that we now call space. But back then it had no name at all, for there was nothing that existed that would be able to identify it as such. This, then, was the beginning of magic, the beginning of life. Many people have attempted to name this period of time as the first world, with the first people becoming the council of the first world. This is incorrect, for there was no world to counsel, only dreams that had yet to be seen, even realized. We sat quiet after this, gently drinking our tea. Coyote deep in thought, and I trying to decipher what exactly the wily trickster was up to. Say, did you finish the journal I left with you? I told my friend I had finished the journal some time ago and rose to get it for him. No, he explained. No need for that. Sit and finish your tea. We sat again in silence as we finished our tea, peacefully watching the flames of the fire ebb and flow, not unlike tides of the ocean. I could feel my breathing becoming shallow and erratic. It is a fine day to commune with shamans, Coyote offered. Your tea is taking hold quicker than I remember. Of course, the Jimson weed I added when you were not paying attention might have something to do with that. I went to reply, but in a moment there became a universe spiraling within a torrent of light. I saw past my naive expectations and marveled at the simplicity which lay before me. Understanding my needs, a great wind lifted me and carried me to a place of golden light. Coyote sat there within a lotus flower, beckoning me to enter. He glowed with such intensity that I could not directly look upon him, but rather felt both his presence in my mind and in my soul. I cured the Jimson weed for many weeks in anticipation of this reunion. It will help you to understand the nature of panspermia, the sounds of life falling from space. The sounds are all around you. Can you hear them? No? The Jimson weed will help. It just needs a little more time. So tell me, what is it that you took away from reading through my journal? There's a lot going on in that journal. I struggled to vocalize what I thought the journal meant most to me, but all that emanated from my mouth were streams of colors, reds, blues, yellows, greens, purples, all the colors that were, and in various shades, even transparencies. Yes, Coyote nodded in agreement. It is a very complex work. You have summarized it nicely. Thank you. And I encourage you to look up coldriverpress.com and please submit your writing.
Yeah, well, oh gosh, that's an excellent anthology, by the way, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. That was powerful stuff. Life is magic. Magic is life. And of course, the coyote is, I mean, that's universal. I mean, that's not just North American, is it? The coyote.
Dates back in time for all cultures.
Okay.
You're familiar with the Egyptian jackal?
Okay.
The coyote.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That was great. Next speaker is Terry Checkon. And Terry, when I decided on this theme of books and libraries, she is the first person I thought of because she's a librarian. And so I asked her if she would tell a story. And of course, she has taken her library skills all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast. And of course, the most famous librarian in literature is Marion, the librarian, who is a heroine of the Music Man. So when I was thinking about this, I thought, okay, we'll have Terrian the librarian. Terrian. What's that?
Thank you. I do have to tell John, my college roommate, my senior year, was named Marion, and she became a librarian, and she hated that song. But my love of libraries began long before I ever worked in them. Our little town was 500 people, the town that I grew up in, with the farms all around. But we had a library. I'm not sure it was a public library because the land, the house or building it was in, Cape Cod Cottage, and the book collection was all given by one very wealthy family. Fortunately, they had about 4 children, and I think 2 were boys and 2 were girls. So there was it was Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys, and a few other series like Betty Emerson and Ruth Fielding that I have never met anybody who ever read any of those books or ever saw that series. I got my first library card when I was 6 years old, and I remember the number 524. But kids could only check out 2 books. And when you're in first grade and just learning to read, you want to go through more than 2 books in a week. So my mother, whose library card number was 18, which tells you that she was a very early user of that library, she could take out 3 books on an adult card. And when she didn't have any books out, she would let me use her card too. And so I could check out 5 books. And we didn't have a librarian. We had Mrs. Alice Mann, who was basically a paid volunteer. Miss Alice got $50 a year. The library was open Tuesday afternoons, and it was open Saturday evening, so the farm people could come in when they came to buy their groceries. They could stop at the library. Now, Miss Alice may have had no training as a librarian, but she had the right instincts. She was an avid reader herself, and when I started reading adult books, she never once questioned what I checked out. In fact, she was eager to share some of her favorite books with me. And my first 2 adult books were A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith and Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Well, I reread A Tree Grows in Brooklyn as an adult, and I felt it didn't quite stand up. So I have never reread Jane Eyre for fear it wouldn't stand up, despite the fact that many people like Karen sitting there right now told me otherwise. Anyway, that's what I thought a library was, this little Cape Cod cottage with this private collection. I think they were really trying to get rid of all of their books, actually. But when I was a sophomore in high school, my mother, my aunt, and I walked down the main street in our county seat, and we passed this very impressive brick building and discovered it had been, first of all, the mayor's house, then a bank, and now it was the headquarters of the county library. And so I walked in, and it looked like a wonderful place to work. So I tried to apply for a summer job there. Well, they didn't have any money to pay me, or they weren't used to having teenagers around. They said I could be a volunteer. So that's what I was. I got to ride up with ladies that worked in the county seat at the courthouse and places like that. And as I said, I was strictly a volunteer, but they let me do everything. And the thing that I enjoyed doing the most was working with the kids in their summer reading program. I thought years later, when I was getting paid 5 figures to do the same thing, I did it as a volunteer for nothing. And I was basically doing the same thing. After that, I got, maybe 3 or 4 years more working there. And I got the wonderful salary of $2 an hour. But that was a lot, and it helped. I put it all together and was able to get some clothes for my next year at school. And the last year that I worked there, Miss Alice had retired, and the library had become part of the county library, and I got to be there in charge on that Tuesday afternoon. I got to stay there all day and be the boss. I cleaned up all morning and I bossed all the patrons around in the afternoon, including my middle school English teacher who always made you read really hard books. And she was also the school librarian. And I noticed in the summer, all she read was Earl Stanley Gardner. I said something to my mother about that. My mother said, if you were a teacher, you'd want to read nothing but mysteries all summer too. So that was that. And by the time I had done all that summer working in libraries, I knew I wanted to be a librarian. And so after college, I got my library degree and I was lucky enough to get a job with one of the great public libraries on the East Coast, the Enoch Pratt Free Library in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, Enoch Pratt gave the money for the library. He was no saint. He was a hardware dealer who, rumor had it, he had sold hardware to both sides in the Civil War. That was Enoch Pratt. And the first little branch library I worked in was actually built in 1903, and it was built with Andrew Carnegie money. And it was the only library I ever worked in where you could open the windows. But my favorite library in Baltimore was the third library where I worked because it had the most memorable young patrons that I ever had. One of them was Maurice, and I don't remember Maurice's last name. Maurice was expelled from elementary school, alas. Not because he did any one bad thing, but I believe he was in the principal's office every day. And so he was sent to, they didn't call it reform school, but I think that's what it was. And the first winter that he was in reform school, during the Christmas season, he came in the library and he said, Miss Black, you want to buy a Christmas candle? Well, the city of Baltimore had this wonderful policy, very useful. They allowed no private business transactions in city buildings. So I said to Maurice, I'm sorry you can't sell candles in the building, and I can't buy a candle from you in the building. Well, Maurice looked around and then he said, Miss Black, let's go out to the parking lot. So I think Maurice is either a very successful businessman or perhaps he has spent some time in the Maryland State Penitentiary. I'm not sure. My favorite patron, however, I have to say ever, was Elizabeth Sly, better known as Effie, because her older brother couldn't pronounce Elizabeth when she was born. She loved to read. She loved libraries. When I once asked her what she wanted to be, she said, oh, a violinist or a writer, or, and she looked at me with great pity and said, a librarian. Effie loved the library so much that one day she stayed too late. She came every day after school, and this was the 60s when kids were on their own, they could do this. And Effie was stayed too late. So the story she told her mother when she got home was not that she had been too long at the library, but that a man had followed her home and she had to lock herself in somebody's shed, and that was why she was late. Well, if that happened nowadays, of course, her mother would have been right on the phone calling the police, and they'd been alerting the neighborhood that there was somebody prowling around. But this was probably 1967 or 68, and her mother just punctured holes in Effie's story. And her punishment was she couldn't come to the library for a week or two. She could still have books. Her older brother came to the library and we'd pick out books for her. And I'm not sure what ever happened to Effie. I know she's not a violinist because she once played her violin for me out on the library patio, and she was not going to make it. If you've ever heard, a violin, I think, is the worst instrument to be played poorly that there ever is. But after 7 years in Baltimore, I ended up in California, got one of the only 4 jobs available in the state at the time, which was in Sacramento. I got out a map because the vacancies were in San Diego, Santa Barbara, and Sacramento. And the only place I had been to California was San Francisco. And I checked the map to see which of those cities was the closest to San Francisco. And that's how I ended up in Sacramento. And I was lucky enough to get a job in a new library that the city of Sacramento was building, the first in 50 years. and it was in South Sacramento, and it was named in memory of Dr. Martin Luther King. And I was their first children's librarian. I later became a coordinator of children's services, so I had a chance to tell lots and lots of stories. And although I've been retired now over 20 years, I realize I am still in love with libraries. I was on the board of the Friends of the Library, and also I'm still secretary of the Friends of the Martin Luther King Library, even though I seem to have misplaced my minutes from the last meeting. But the meeting was very brief, and at the local Starbucks, because the Martin Luther King Library is being remodeled. I think I have an excuse for maybe not having minutes. And I must say that I will probably be a library lover right up until the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. That's exactly the kind of story I was hoping to hear. Well, last and certainly least is Ed Lewis. And Ed, of course, most everybody knows, and Ed makes sure everybody knows him. So, but there's not a bigger promoter of storytelling than Ed. He talks to everybody about storytelling. He has his car labeled about storytelling. Ed is Mr. Storytelling. So, Ed.
All right, buddy. What are good friends for? Well, after returning home from the military during the Vietnam War, my heart was closed. It was full of fear, and I knew I had to do something. I was up in Seattle. So I decided to hit the road. And I got that inspiration from going to the library. I devoured books. Jack Kerouac, On the Road, Woody Guthrie. And so I devised a plan to travel for 2 years. I picked literature on Egypt. I wanted to go down the Nile River, go into India. I was going to hike Mount Everest, go to Australia, go through the jungles of Africa. I mapped this all out from all this great literature I was getting, and I was going to be a survivalist. So Mother Jones, I was reading all the books, and I stuck out my thumb in Seattle and hitchhiked with a buddy all the way to New York City in 1 month in November in the snow. Our first stop was Cheyenne, Wyoming, and we were hitchhiking. And a police officer pulled up to us and he said, "What are you boys doing here?" "Well, we're just trying to get out of town. We're heading to Ken's house up in upstate Michigan." And he said, "Well, you guys got two choices. One is you can walk down that hill, cross those train tracks, go 2 blocks down to the bus station and get a bus ticket and get out of my town. The other is you can hop in the back of my car. I'll take you to a nice little cell where, you might get some food and a haircut so you look presentable." Okay, we will head on down. So we started going down and a train came by. Open boxcars. We're going to jump on it like Woody Guthrie. We took a leap. I took a leap, first leap. We got big backpacks. I hit the side of the train, bounced right off. Luckily, I had my pack, so it didn't hurt me. And we went, okay, well, I guess we're not going to do that. But the train stopped after about 10 minutes. And we ran down to where there was an open boxcar and got in it. We were just hoping it was heading east. And for 10 hours, we went up over the Rockies, and then we came down into North Platte, Nebraska. We had no idea where we were going until we got off. We act this long-haired hippie type like us, where we were. He said North Platte, and we kept hitchhiking. We made our way all across the United States. We flew into Luxembourg, and a couple other Army buddies, and did the plan that I had decided on, going through Spain into the Canary Islands, Northern Africa, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, oh, Algeria also, up around to Israel, through Pakistan and India, and then we were going to scoot around to Australia and head up into Korea. That was going to be the end of the journey. Well, they all left in about 3 months. And I ended up in the Canary Islands, and I was going to open up my heart, overcome my fear, live off the land. So I lived in a cave for 6 months in the Canary Islands, reading from backpackers that I had met, books like Be Here Now by Baba Ram Dass, yoga books. I could just walk in the mountains. I was by myself and survived getting fish and vegetables from the earth. And it was just an amazing time. But I still felt like something was missing. And I met this guy hiking, and he spent the last month with me there. And he was heading to Morocco. You want to come? And I said, sure, I'm ready. We got a freighter, went to Spanish Sahara, drove on top of a truck 3 days through the Sahara Desert, and came to this beautiful bay where there were 20 mostly Scandinavian hippies that came down every year and set up camp. There were people from Bulgaria and Romania. And of course, we all have books. So we're just passing these books around, and I got interested in poetry. And when we came into that camp, the first person we saw was this just gorgeous, really friendly young woman. We were all in our 20s. And we walked up to her, and I was kind of frozen, but I said, is there any campsite around where we can pitch our tent? She said, oh, come on down. There's right next to me and my 2 girlfriends. So we went there and came back up to the party that was happening that night. And her and I were just locked at the hip together. She was a physics professor, 29, from Denmark, Copenhagen, and she was hitchhiking with her 2 girlfriends to Africa, down to South Africa, to go on a walking safari. I mean, I was just mesmerized by her. This was it. And for the next week, we explored together, and I kind of felt my heart opening. We went into villages. She spoke French, which is the second language of Morocco. We went on camel rides out through the desert with the Berber Indians. We went into small villages and into markets, and it was just a fascinating experience. We camped out for a week down on the beach, just her and I. And it was, for me, I was in total love. And my heart, I could feel it. It was just starting to open, and I felt like I could communicate more. Well, we were there for that entire week, and then they had to head out. So these 3 girls, we gave each other a hug and kiss, and it was the first time I had tears just flowing down my face. And so did she, as they hopped into this truck that stopped immediately for them. And we just looked at each other, blew each other a kiss. And from that moment on, my heart had reopened, and I felt like the world was ready for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Sorry I dissed you.
Fine beer.
All right, that concludes our program, folks. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And thank Vicky again, since I left her out the last time. Wonderful program. Come back again. Yes.
Saturday next month?
Right, okay, yeah, so March is the only month that we don't have the program here. March, we're having our festival at the West Sacramento Community Center. And then starting again on the third Saturday of April, we will have our monthly program. So come again, thank you.
I have tickets, $25.